Hello and welcome to another edition of TCT Talks. As we hear the noise about Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and now people saying we're already living in 5.0, we can see this impact very visibly in some industries. And one of them is the banking and finance industry. Right from the time when we went to physical branches till we had ATMs, then mobile banking, then app-based banking, and now all kinds of cardless and banking of a kind where you can't even comprehend that something like this was possible 20 years ago. How do you build careers in this? What is the impact of technology, and how is the regional financial hub of Singapore and ASEAN handling this? So today I invited Mr. Cyrus Daruwala, who's a leading financial expert. He's led global organizations from Singapore for decades. He worked for 21 years in one of them, which is unthinkable in today's world and by today's generation to stay in a job that long. But his tenure, his exposure at the highest levels gives him a keen insight into what is happening in ASEAN, what is happening in the banking and financial industry, because he has sat not only on the research side of things, but on the cusp of finance and technology. So welcome, Cyrus. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nalin. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
So tell our young people, what is it like to work in a place for 21 years? Nowadays, marriages don't last even two years.
True, very true. And I was fortunate, I would say, again, as the age and the gray hair shows. I mean, it was a slightly different time, but I had the privilege of hiring thousands of young students. So my first 11 years was with HSBC. We started off in foreign exchange and foreign exchange trading, and then we moved to HSBC and operations, and then a good 21 years with Blackstone, a part of Blackstone called IDC, which was the research part that you mentioned, Nalin. And what was it like? I honestly and sincerely can tell you it flew by very quickly, at least for me. And I guess that was because it was always very different. What we did predominantly was deal with almost about 500 institutions across Asia, Pacific, and Japan. So every bank at a different maturity, every bank had a different requirement, every insurer was going through a different set of business or technology operation challenges. So there was no repetitiveness. It wasn't a factory. You sit there, churn out the same thing, and do it within a time frame. Everything was unique and it's different and it's thought provoking. You were entitled to have an opinion, and we all love to have an opinion, and people listen to you. So all of that combination, Alan, I honestly, hand on heart, would say it didn't feel, oh my God, I've spent 35 years in all this. It felt like I just landed up in Hong Kong, a
So,
couple of
I,
months ago.
so if I could distill that for young people, if you find a job which gives you challenging assignments and different roles and exciting things to do, client facing, then it's worth staying on for longer periods of time.
Yeah, yeah. I would actually urge even more. Stop being that impatient. Gen Zs, my daughter being one of them, and Gen Alpha even more so, have an extremely short attention span. Whether it's studies, whether it's videos, whether it's flipping through left, right, whatever it is that you're doing, their attention span is extremely small. So when a kid joining us in their 20s tells me I'm a little bored, I want to change, I urge them, think it has a long-term ramification on your knowledge base and your input. So don't be that impatient to go just because of the few $1,000 extra the next one is giving you. Look at your learning curve. Yeah.
Actually, that reminds me of something my daughter did. In her first job, she stayed for 3 years. She's Gen Z, and she felt a little out of place compared to her colleagues. And I told her, what you have done is invaluable. Because
Yeah.
if you want to be a leader or a CEO of a large company someday, no board is going to trust you with that position if you've not spent at least 3 to 5 years in at least one job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
True,
that's
true.
very critical for young people to know. Now, you have lived most of your life, professional life in Singapore, isn't it?
Singapore, Hong Kong,
Yeah.
Australia,
So
Japan, quite a bit.
yeah. So these are all financial hubs. And
Yeah,
now, with the politics and the geopolitics for people, young people to seek jobs in the Western side of things like UK, Europe, Americas,
yeah,
the prospects are slightly dimmer. Do
yeah.
you think there are more opportunities and people from India, etc., should actually look at ASEAN, Singapore, Hong Kong, and the ASEAN countries?
That's a great question, Nalin, and the absolute unwavering answer is yes. The Western world is not what it used to be, at least in my times or Nalin's times. So I dare say, and this is live and recorded, a lot of the Western financial institutions are almost third world, and you'd be surprised. Let me just compare a big state owned bank like State Bank of India or an ICBC of China or an ICICI of India, um, and compare that to a very large financial institution in America or in the UK or in Germany. And my friends, these Asian institutions are neck and shoulder above these other Western institutions.
In
So
technology?
now, in technology, correct,
Okay.
in technology adoption, when you're looking at a base Python programmer, a base AI and machine learning analytics and analyst, the use cases that they will have in the Asian context, anywhere from from India all the way to Australia and New Zealand, is far superior and far richer than what you would get in Eastern Europe or Western Europe or even America. I almost am saying they are a neck and shoulder above the Western world. Furthermore, what you mentioned, Nalin, it's a very insular world that you have been inducted into. Nobody really likes foreigners coming in and taking their jobs. So please don't doubt your credibility or your abilities and your prowess. You are exceptionally good, and in the 90s, you would have been begged and taken away. But in today's day and age, every country says, why are we bringing in foreigners? Singapore is no different, by the way, and Hong Kong is no different. They're saying, why do we need that many foreigners? Europe and US has gone to a political level. They actually don't like foreigners. They're being shooed away. So think of this. Don't be bedazzled by the West. The East is exceptionally good and long term a bet. Go here. Don't go
Yeah.
there.
I get your point. Technologically, the East is much more advanced in banking, finance, etc. And the allure of the West was there 20, 30 years ago. The same opportunity lies on this side, but the students tend to focus on disproportionately higher there. And to me, that story seems to be dead.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lack of real on-ground information, Nalin. And I guess programs like this and speaking to a couple of people. I know an Indian senior person, senior I mean about 3 or 4 years, reluctantly went to Hong Kong and joined HSBC. And well, I don't really like it. It's still this and that. And there was a barrage of resistances, and he's gone there with a young family in their 20s. And I had to practically show the better side of it and the future of it. And now they've bought in, and now a couple of other people have bought in. So the momentum is there. I mean, you'd be surprised to know the fourth most populous country in the world is Indonesia. How many of you would be excited about a posting in a bank or an insurance or an asset manager in Indonesia? Not many. Why? Because you don't know that much. You perceive it to be, yeah, it's not that great. Wrong. Thailand, another example. Superb. These are all modern countries. They are growing, they're exponentially expanding their pay scales, standard of livings are higher, but most importantly, your skill set is very valued there versus the West where you're a commodity.
Interesting you mentioned Indonesia. I'm sitting in Jakarta for the last 6 years, and I'm looking out over the financial capital skyline, and there isn't an Indian city that can match it. So It's but very few actually know about it. But heading east, something that you did very early. At that time, when Indians went out to the east, you were qualified, you were valued for your, intelligence and skills you brought. But the expectations from you were different. Now, when an Indian goes, the expectations are different. You're an IT superpower, the sophistication, grooming, social skills, very different because these countries also have evolved. Singapore is not what it was 30, 40 years ago. So, for young people from India, what do you think they should do? How should they prepare? Forget the technical things. How should they prepare socially for a shift?
Very good point again, Nalin. I think, guys, I mean, y'all are researchers and y'all are analysts and you're programmers and you're project managers. I think first thing, try and create a unique differentiator. Every single person is clamoring. It's like, let me give you another example. On that one street, wherever it is that you live, there are 26 pizza shops or burger shops. How is that a clever idea? Everybody clamoring for the same thing, everybody trying to create the same thing. So from day one, from tomorrow, start creating a unique differentiator. What am I good at? Or what would I like to do? And again, where you ask yourself is the least competition. You're trying to get to MIT or an IIT where 1 in 100,000 gets accepted. Why would you disappoint yourself? Why would you not go to a place where there's a 1 in 3 chance of you being accepted? So do that research, accept that. And again, to the younger ones, please be patient. I've been here 1 year, I didn't get promoted. Guys, nobody gets promoted. I don't really like the environment. Guys, nobody likes it. If anybody says, I love my job, they're lying. So I'm saying be patient with yourself, with the environment, with the job that you've been given. At the end of the day, you're getting remunerated for your skill set. Hone it, adapt it, grow with it. Don't be impatient.
So interesting, when I visit campuses, even in India, two words stand out compared to earlier times. And every generation is different, so it's not something that's good and bad. One, people are so fittishly focused on job description,
Yes, yeah,
whereas most companies don't have a job description. There's a job. That's it.
yeah, yeah,
And second, when students, right before even they have 1 day of experience, say, what is the package I will get?
yeah.
These two are a sure turn off for anybody from the earlier generation hiring a fresher.
Yeah.
And you face that so many times that it becomes it sounds very strange to people of an earlier generation.
Very
Unfortunately,
true.
we are the ones giving the job, so they have to adapt to us. Or should we to them because they are going to run the world after us? That's a
True,
million
true.
dollar question.
So, and Nalin, actually, guys, when I speak to you, I'm not even speaking as Nalin's peer or your superior or somebody older. I'm saying it because we have this data. I mean, you know the value of data. We've got historical data, and hence we can analyze that. Your data set is a year old. Our data set is 30 years old. So we've seen the trends a lot more. We can predict the trends a lot more. And for those who are impatient, and to Nalin's point, job description and this and that, I urge you, please look at your peer. Compare India and China. I've spent a lot of time there, speak Chinese. Let me tell you, an average young Chinese graduate, and by the way, there's 30 or 40% more graduates being churned out from China than there are in India. How do they all very comfortably get placed? Whether they're going to an end user, which is a bank, an insurance company, an asset manager, a financial institution, or they're going to a Huawei or a Xiaomi or a TikTok or a tech company or an app company. How is it that these millions of graduates are getting a job, doing well, going up the ladder, actually, and the competition, I dare say, is 3 times more fierce compared to India. And guess what? I even dare say they work way harder than the Indian diaspora works. They put in way more hours. So if that's what you're up against, shouldn't you drop that expectation? Take a job, understand it, do it well, and then your output speaks for itself.
It's interesting you say that. I often, when I look at both the countries myself, I feel in India, we are getting lazy, the strong word, complacent before we get rich. Uh,
Comfortable, like ho
Comfortable.
jayega, kar
Yeah.
denge. I'm
Yeah.
sure it will be done.
We've
Thoda
made a
jaldi karna
virtue.
hai. Yeah.
We've made a virtue out of jugaad, whereas that is the exact thing we should be avoiding.
Yeah.
It
True.
doesn't work in the long term.
Very
Doesn't
true.
work in structured environments.
Yeah.
You said made an interesting point about Chinese graduates, 30-40% more than India, and getting placed. Even in India, you pick up the newspaper and you'll see two paradoxical news items on two different pages. On the front page, you'll have the unemployment rate
Yeah.
of how the young people are not finding jobs. And inside, you'll find we have 20 million digital talent shortage.
Yeah.
What are we missing here? I mean, what is going on?
I'll tell you what we're missing, Nalan: dignity of labor. Nahi yaar, I don't want to go all the way to Hyderabad for that. No, don't know. I'd rather go to Dubai because you're so bedazzled by Dubai, but I don't want to go to Mumbai because, I mean, after all, it's an Indian bank. There's a lot of senseless, I would call it, inhibitors pre-programmed in their minds. So I would say, guys, start off. I have been unemployed. I have seen a lot of friends unemployed for long periods. It's not a comfortable situation to be in because your skill will become a commodity available by the millions.
So it's interesting you say that, that especially post COVID, we observe that a lot of young people are reluctant to relocate domestically, but they're so excited to go to a Dubai or somewhere else where the salary differentials are not what they used to be. You actually lose money if you calculate the number of times you have to come back in a year and all that stuff. The entry level salary are nowhere near that high. So this reluctance to be mobile is really a career dampener for a lot of young people.
Yeah, yeah. And furthermore, not just reluctance to relocate. I'm sure the Indians are happy to move outside of India, and a lot of them, by the millions, actually have done well overseas. I'm saying do your research. There are places, for example, just throwing a question. How many of you would be interested in going and joining three very, very large banks in South Africa or in Nigeria or in Ethiopia? So you think that Dubai market, do you know Dubai is that small? The UAE, for example, is that small and that limited. And yes, millions of Indians have made billions of dollars there, but it's hitting a saturation point. Why would you not go and experiment in South Africa, the third largest economy in all of the African
Yeah.
continent, or in Nigeria, which is the bigger one? So think outside the box, guys, and don't be limited. And please, again, as I said earlier, don't be bedazzled by all this same old Gisa Pita dialogue. Oh, Dubai is good and London is good and this thing is good. There are other
So
places.
let's get to the banking and finance world. It's almost being
Sure.
ravaged by AI or being forced uh, to people are being forced to look inwards. As advanced as the
Yeah.
banking system is over here technologically versus the older West, still they all missed the fintech bus. I mean, Walmart missed the
Yes.
e-commerce bus. Every industry, right? Cab taxi companies missed the ride-hailing bus and they missed the fintech bus. Now, what is happening? I mean, which direction are they going in? What are they thinking right now?
Correct. So agentic AI, that would be the answer. Now, what that means is that banking still had a lot of mundane processes, the maker checker process, the customer onboarding process. Now, when we say onboarding, simple question, simple example. When you and I start an account or apply for a card, the actual steps, if you count, identify you and me as a customer, fill in the forms, collect the data, verify the data, authenticate the data, mark the data, then scrub the data, create a numerical value or an account number. issue the card or the account or the savings account, issue a checking account. All of these are hundreds of small processes powered by hundreds or dozens of uh, solutions behind it. Try to find where within this powertrain you fit. That's number one. Then find out, can an AI or an agentic AI displace that process or that mundane task? And if the answer is yes, then it's a career limiting move to go into that space. So decouple, and guys, again, while you're thinking big money retail and consumer banking in technology, you've completely overlooked there's a whole world of asset managers and wealth creators. And that's a very relatively less known world of financial services. Finance is not the correct word to begin with. So I would urge you all to start saying financial services. And within the financial services bracket and basket, you have retail and consumer banking, your branches and your saving account and salary accounts. That's one part. Then you have the asset management, your investments, your CPF, your MPF, your wealth management, your stockbroking. That is a whole world by itself. And then you have insurance, and it could be regular life insurance capital, or it could be investment link. So understand each one of these three pillars of financial services well. And behind each one of these pillars, to your point, Nalin, there are changes happening daily. And the one underlying technology change that is affecting all three of these pillars is agentic AI, which is a self learning capability of an AI program using old sets or new sets of data with an intelligent output. So imagine ChatGPT on steroids multiplied by 100 times more compute capability. That's
So,
changing financial
so for a young
services.
person, whenever one starts looking for a job, it appears as if job market is bad. It's like when you start looking for a spouse, suddenly all the good-looking ones disappear. So, so
Yeah,
for a young person now coming out
yeah.
of college in the financial services sector, which are the areas or the kind of jobs where people are still hiring?
People are hiring. Okay, so let me draw a pyramid. There may be a fewer jobs right on the top, but they are extremely valuable jobs. And they are what we call, again, what I said, agentic AI or AI analytics or machine learning jobs. We've covered the agentic AI part. We've covered what we will call the operational jobs, which is quite a bit. But right at the bottom, a very large base is formed of GRC, governance, risk, compliance, operational roles, reporting roles, processes around collecting data, whether it goes to the CFO, to the board, or to the regulator. All of those GRC, and that includes a very large segment of operational risk, credit risk, market risk, all of these risk related jobs. They're relatively less known. Everybody goes IT, 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 or back office. So look at these frontline roles because these are analyst roles and it gives you a very, and banks, by the way, are very, very protective of this bottom layer because these are almost like historians of the bank. And the more you stay with the bank, the longer you stay, the more you become valuable because this is fall back on history. Oh, I know we typically do this and avoid this problem in this way. So look
So,
at the GRC roles.
yeah, so that's a good area to focus for jobs. But just speaking of governance, risk, compliance, today we have a unique situation where you have multiple generations banking uh, because people didn't live this long, and definitely when they did in the past, they were not going to traditional banks. They didn't deal with them. So we have a situation where technology is changing so fast that the older folks are finding it challenging just to uh, function. You have incidents of digital arrest, cyber fraud, etc. Is there a lot of focus on that in with this GRC and all of that,
Yes,
or
absolutely, absolutely. So cybersecurity and what we call external threats Internal threats were always there. External threats have changed. You mentioned first, Nalin, in our opening, how we used to walk into a branch. How was a branch secured? There was a guy with a double barrel ancient gun sitting outside, and that was your maximum security. Now we've got firewalls, and we've got what we will call device-based, network-based, and various other uh, security challenges. But as yet, it's not enough because the guys who are trying to hack in have these tools and more to their dispense. So find your niche within the security, but that's rapidly evolving. So don't bet yourself on a certain focus area, which may soon be replaced by another new AI enabled solution, and then your skill set becomes redundant. In fact, be the person who's constantly upgrading his or her skill, looking at these multitude of areas, and you will find your niche. Look, nobody starts off knowing exactly what they want. You grow into your role, and then the interest comes in.
So
So look at
one
it
one
that way.
final question before I
Sure.
let you go. So for young people today, forget technical skills, assuming they're technically qualified, they have that one unique identifier. What are the one or two things that are absolutely essential to succeed in ASEAN as a skill?
Do a bit more research. Now you have the tools and the chat GPTs and the AI enabled search engines to be able to do very thorough and very articulate search. So start there. What country, what bank, what financial institution would you like to get into? And you couldn't possibly have the answer to that. Find out. Operations attracts me, risk attracts me, reporting. You may be an outgoing person, you obviously want the frontline job. You're relatively a conservative, shy person, the back office may be the right one. So I think more than the technical skill sets relate to the persona. Are you analytical? Then research and a business analytics is an important role. If you're I like my 9 to 5, I don't like to work that hard because I've got a family life, then the front line or a crisis management role like a CIO is not for you because that's a
To
24/7 job.
basically understand yourself better. Uh,
Understand yourself and map that against the role that you're looking to apply
yeah.
for.
One final point, you spoke
Yeah,
about living
please.
in Hong Kong and speaking Mandarin. How important is an understanding or cultural competence when you work in some other country?
If you I Okay, let me put it that way. The Chinese who are successful are the ones that embrace the culture of Africa. And by the way, I'm giving that example is because Africa is practically owned and controlled by the Chinese. So if you stay within your conclave as an expat, never go meet, mingle, learn the language, you never "nahi ghar jana yaar, I had enough," then you will never really be 100% successful. And again, that's the disconnect. Everybody's happy and willing to do that in the US, for example. But why not in Nigeria? Why not in Riyadh in Saudi? Why not in Hong Kong? Well, it doesn't feel, yeah, guys, go with the flow. So I'm saying be a bit more patient, embrace this where you are culture a lot more. And then I think the role will automatically morph into something that you like. That's my advice.
Cyrus, it's been an absolute delight to have you, and your insights are so practical and actionable that our young people will definitely gain from that. Thank you.
Th-
Have a
Thank you very
have a
much,
good day.
Nalin.
Take care.
Have a great career. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.